The unconventional solution. Commander Maya Chen stood at the viewport of the Alliance flagship, Celestial Wisdom, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling nebula beyond. Unlike the other officers on the bridge, beings from a dozen different species across the galaxy, she wasn't using any augmented reality displays or neural interfaces. She just watched, her pupils dilating slightly as patterns formed and dissipated in the cosmic gases. Commander Chen, the Council is waiting. The voice belonged to Senior Admiral Felix, his blue-scaled face impassive as ever. The Ordorian Admiral had never bothered to hide his skepticism about humans in general and Maya in particular. "Tell them I'm observing the nebula's flow patterns," Maya replied without turning. "It's relevant to our tactical situation." Felix made a clicking sound with his throat sacs, the Ordorian equivalent of an exasperated sigh. "The Council has no interest in your intuitive methods. They want your formal tactical assessment using standard Alliance protocols." Maya finally turned, her short black hair framing a face that seemed perpetually amused by a private joke. "And they'll get it, Admiral. But first, I need to see." For 200 years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Alliance, a confederation of 27 spacefaring species. Most had been traversing the stars for millennia, when humans first ventured beyond their solar system. The Alliance had welcomed Earth's children with the polite condescension of adults greeting clever children. Interesting, but hardly equals. Humans were accepted for their adaptability and determination, but their technology remained centuries behind most Alliance species. Instead, humanity found its niche as diplomats, cultural analysts, and occasionally, military tacticians. Maya was considered exceptional even among human tacticians, though her methods were controversial. She finally relented and followed Felix to the war room, where holographic displays showed the dire situation facing the Alliance. The Void Collective, a mysterious enemy that had emerged from the darkness between galaxies, had systematically destroyed 3 Alliance worlds in the past month. Their technology defied conventional analysis, their ships seemingly able to predict Alliance fleet movements with uncanny accuracy. The collective fleet is projected to reach the Saren homeworld in 18 hours, High Commander Velox was saying as Maya entered. The insectoid commander manipulated the display with elegant movements of her 4 upper limbs. "Standard probability matrices give us a 12% chance of successful defense. Those matrices are flawed," Maya said as she took her seat. The room fell silent, all eyes on the human. "They assume the collective uses the same tactical basis as we do. They don't." "And you know this how exactly?" asked Sub-Chancellor Maris, his tentacles twitching with irritation. Maya placed her hand on the table, interfacing with the holographic system. The display changed, showing the nebula she'd been observing. "The collective ships move like these gas currents, not in formation, but in probability clouds. They don't just predict where we'll be. They exist in multiple tactical states simultaneously." "Quantum positioning," Felix scoffed. "That's theoretically impossible for vessels of their size." "So is traveling between galaxies," Maya countered. "Yet here they are." She manipulated the display again, showing her proposed defense strategy. Instead of the rigid formations favored by Alliance doctrine, her plan showed ships moving in seemingly random patterns, constantly shifting without apparent coordination. "This is," Velox searched for the diplomatic word, "unorthodox." "It's chaos," Felix said flatly. "You propose we abandon 10,000 years of proven formation tactics for what? Randomness." Maya smiled thinly. "Not random. Unpredictable. There's a difference. The collective's advantage comes from predicting our movements through quantum probability assessment. They target where we will be, not where we are. And your solution is to, what? Dance around them?" Moiras asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. "In a manner of speaking," Maya replied. "We need to operate outside predictive algorithms. Humans call it jazz tactics, improvisation within a framework." The council debated for hours, But with the threat looming and conventional options exhausted, they reluctantly approved a modified version of Maya's plan. She would command a small battle group, mostly human pilots with a few allies willing to follow her unorthodox approach, while the main fleet maintained standard formations. Maya spent the hours before battle in her quarters, eyes closed, visualizing flows and patterns only she could see. She didn't use the neural simulations or tactical computers. She simply sat cross-legged on the floor, her hands occasionally moving, as if conducting an invisible orchestra. When the alarm sounded, she was ready. The space around Saren soon erupted in the most unusual battle the Alliance had ever fought. The Void Collective arrived in their distinctive formation, if it could be called that, ships arranged in what seemed like three-dimensional quantum probability clouds that shifted and writhed like living things. The main Alliance fleet moved into standard defensive patterns and was immediately devastated. The Collective's weapons fired not at ships, but at empty spaces where Alliance vessels would arrive moments later, with devastating accuracy. Meanwhile, Maya's small contingent moved differently. Each pilot followed her fundamental principle: never be where an algorithm would predict, but interpreted it uniquely. Human pilots spun and looped in ways that defied tactical sense, while their alien counterparts adapted the concept to their own flight styles. "This is madness," Felix muttered from the command ship, watching the displays with growing disbelief. "This is working," Velox corrected, pointing to the statistics. Maya's battle group was sustaining 70% fewer casualties than the main fleet. The collected ships seemed confused by the unpredictable movements, their perfect targeting suddenly imperfect. For the first time, Alliance weapons found their mark against the invaders. Maya herself flew a small interceptor, her movements more fluid than any of her pilots. She seemed to anticipate the Collective's adjustments before they happened, shifting her position in ways that made targeting her virtually impossible. "How is she doing this?" Myers asked, watching Maya's ship dance between enemy vessels, drawing their fire, and creating openings for her team to exploit. "I don't think she's following any plan," Velox said softly. "She's just feeling the battle." 3 hours later, the impossible had happened. The Collective fleet retreated, leaving behind several destroyed vessels. The first time they had suffered significant losses. Saren was saved, though at heavy cost to the main Alliance fleet. The debriefing was tense, with Alliance leadership divided between celebrating the victory and questioning Maya's methods. "Your jazz tactics saved Saren," Velox acknowledged, "but they cannot be replicated or scaled. They rely too heavily on human instinct." "That's exactly the point," Maya insisted. "The Collective's advantage is technological, quantum probability matrices that predict standard tactics. Our advantage must be biological, human intuition that operates outside algorithmic prediction. You're suggesting we abandon our technological superiority for gut feelings." Felix was incredulous. "I'm suggesting we complement it," Maya corrected. "The Collective expects us to respond with logic and established protocols. They can predict that. They cannot predict human intuition." After the meeting, Dr. Lan, the Alliance's chief xenoneurologist, approached Maya privately. The Tellurian scientist's eyes glowed with interest. "I scanned your neural patterns during the battle," Lan said without preamble, his translucent skin pulsing with blue light patterns. "You're perceiving quantum probabilities directly, aren't you?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. "I've always seen patterns others don't. Flow states, probability clouds. My instructors at Earth's Tactical Academy thought I was making it up." "You're not," Lan said. "Your brain is processing quantum information that most sentient beings can't access consciously. It's remarkable." "Can other humans do this?" Maya asked. "Perhaps to lesser degrees," Lan replied. "Human brains evolved on a planet with high environmental unpredictability. Your species developed neural pathways for intuitive probability assessment rather than logical calculation. Can it be taught?" Lan's skin pulsed thoughtfully. "Perhaps. Not to non-humans. Our neural structures are too different. But to other humans, Yes, I believe it could be developed. Maya smiled for the first time since the battle. Then we have hope. As they spoke, across the ship, the Alliance leadership was reviewing data from the engagement. Despite their skepticism about Maya's methods, the numbers were undeniable. Her approach had worked where conventional tactics had failed. We should establish a training program, Velox suggested. If Commander Chen can teach other humans this intuitive combat style, we might have a genuine advantage. It goes against everything in our tactical doctrine, Felix protested. So do the Void Collective, Myras pointed out. Perhaps it's time our doctrine evolved. The decision wasn't unanimous, but it was final. Maya would be given resources to train a small corps of human pilots in her methods. The Alliance, for the first time in its history, would rely on human intuition rather than advanced technology for its survival. As news spread through the fleet, Maya found herself approached by pilots from across the Alliance, mostly humans, but some aliens as well, all curious about her methods. "Can you teach us to see what you see?" asked Lieutenant Kira Wong, a young human pilot who had survived the battle. Maya considered the question carefully. "Not exactly, but I can teach you to trust what you feel instead of what you think. In quantum combat, thinking is too slow. Feeling is faster." That night, as the Alliance fleet regrouped and planned their next move against the Collective, Maya stood again at the viewport, watching the nebula's swirling patterns. She could see the quantum probabilities shifting and flowing, beautiful and terrible in their complexity. The Alliance had gained a valuable edge, but the war was far from over. The Collective would adapt, would find new ways to predict and counter. The dance was just beginning. She closed her eyes and let her mind flow with the possibilities, preparing for the battles to come. Changing the rules. The training facility aboard the Alliance carrier, Adaptive Resolve, hummed with activity. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Saren, and in that time, Maya had assembled a group of 24 pilots, 20 humans, and 4 aliens who showed particular aptitude for what the Alliance was now officially calling quantum intuitive tactics. Maya walked between the simulator pods, observing each pilot's neural readouts. The human pilots were progressing well, especially those with backgrounds in Earth activities that required improvisation: musicians, dancers, certain athletes. The aliens, 2 Havelians with their unique spiral neural structures, a Nezdek whose species had evolved under quantum unstable conditions, and a Tyrellian empath, were struggling but showing promise. "You're still thinking too much, Ramirez," Maya said, tapping on a simulator pod where Lieutenant Carlos Ramirez was attempting to navigate a simulated collective attack. "Feel the flow, don't calculate it." The lieutenant's frustrated voice came through the speaker. "With respect, Commander, feel the flow isn't exactly specific tactical guidance." Maya smiled. She'd heard this complaint countless times in the past weeks. "Switch off your targeting computer and try again." "That's suicide," Ramirez protested. "Is it? Or is it freedom?" She moved on before he could argue further. At the far end of the facility, Dr. Lan was monitoring the neural patterns of the pilots, particularly Maya's. The scientist had developed a theory about what made certain humans capable of perceiving quantum probability states. "Your right parietal lobe shows unusual activity patterns," Lan explained when Maya joined him at the monitoring station. "Most sentient species process spatial information sequentially. Where something is, then where it will be. But you're processing multiple potential locations simultaneously. Can it be enhanced in others?" Maya asked, watching the neural readouts of her pilots. "We're attempting to stimulate similar patterns using targeted neural feedback," Lan replied. "Results are mixed, but promising." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Felix, his blue scales gleaming under the facility's lights. Despite the success at Saran, the Admiral remained skeptical of Maya's program. "The High Council requires a progress report, Commander," he announced without preamble. "They're concerned about the resources being allocated to this experiment." Maya gestured to the simulation statistics displayed on the main screen. Hit rates are up 63% compared to standard tactics against collective-type targets. Survival rates improved by 47%. Under controlled conditions, Felix countered. Simulations cannot replicate actual combat against an intelligent enemy that adapts. Then give us a chance to prove it in the field, Maya challenged. My team is ready for a live exercise. Felix's throat sacs pulsed with skepticism. The Council is not prepared to risk actual ships on untested tactics. They were prepared to at Saren when their backs were against the wall, Maya pointed out. Are we waiting for another crisis before we innovate? Before Felix could respond, the facility's alert system activated. The Admiral's communicator pulsed with urgent priority signals. It seems you'll get your chance sooner than expected, Commander, Felix said grimly after receiving the message. The collective has been detected approaching the Vega colony. All available forces are being mobilized. Maya's heart raced. Vega was one of the first human colonies to join the Alliance, home to over 3 million people. My team is ready. They'd better be, Felix replied. Because the main fleet is still rebuilding after Saran. Your quantum dancers will make up nearly 30% of our defensive force. Within hours, the adaptive resolve had joined the hastily assembled Alliance fleet at the jump point for the Vega system. Maya's pilots, now designated Quantum Squadron, were preparing their ships, modified interceptors with reduced automation and enhanced manual controls, allowing for the split-second improvisation her tactics required. In the briefing room, Maya addressed her team. This isn't a simulation anymore. Real lives depend on us today. She activated the holographic display, showing the Vega system and the projected approach vector of the collective fleet. Intelligence suggests they've adapted their tactics in Saran. They'll be expecting our unpredictability. How do we counter that? Asked Lieutenant Wang. If they can predict that we'll be unpredictable, we move to the next level, Maya replied. Quantum recursive unpredictability. We'll be unpredictable about how we're unpredictable. The pilots exchanged glances, some confused, others grasping the concept. Maya continued, I've assigned each of you to one of 4 flight groups. Each group will develop its own interpretation of quantum tactics. During battle, I'll direct which group takes the lead, and the others will adapt and respond to that group's pattern, or anti-pattern. She looked at each pilot in turn. Trust your feelings. Trust each other. The collective relies on perfect prediction. Our advantage is that humans are gloriously, wonderfully imperfect. As they moved to their ships, Dr. Lan approached Maya with a neural interface headset. This will allow me to monitor and potentially amplify your quantum perception during battle, the scientist explained. It might give you an edge. Maya hesitated but accepted the device. Just don't scramble my brains, Doctor. I need those. The Vega system was beautiful, a yellow star surrounded by 7 planets, the third of which hosted the human colony. As the Alliance fleet took up defensive positions, Maya led Quantum Squadron to their assigned sector. All pilots activate neural augmentation, she ordered, placing Lan's device on her head. Immediately, her perception shifted. The probability clouds around the ships became more vivid, potential movement paths visible as ghostly trails in space. I can see it, whispered Lieutenant Wang over the comm. The flow patterns, they're beautiful. Stay focused, Maya cautioned. Beauty can be deadly out here. The collective arrived with terrifying precision, their ships emerging from subspace in a formation that seemed to ripple with quantum uncertainty. There were more of them than at Saren, much more. Alliance vessels, this is High Commander Velox. Standard Combat Protocol Theta 9. Quantum Squadron, you are authorized for independent tactical deployment. Maya acknowledged the order, then addressed her team. Group 3, take point. Pattern Indigo. The battle erupted across Vega's orbital space, conventional Alliance ships moving in their coordinated formations, while Quantum Squadron split into their assigned groups. Group 3 initiated Pattern Indigo, a flowing, wave-like movement that seemed chaotic, but contained subtle recurring elements. At first, the collective ships targeted them with the same deadly accuracy they'd shown in previous engagements. 2 Alliance cruisers were destroyed in the opening minutes, their formations too predictable despite attempts to incorporate elements of Maya's tactics. They've adapted to our sarin patterns, Maya realized. Group 2, take lead. Pattern Crimson. The transition was seamless, Group 3 falling back as Group 2 surged forward with a completely different movement style, sharp, angular cuts through space that defied conventional physics. The collective's targeting suddenly degraded, their shots missing more often than hitting. "It's working," Lieutenant Wong exclaimed. "For now," Maya cautioned. Through her enhanced perception, she could see the collective's probability clouds shifting, adapting. They learned fast. Group 4, ready for transition in 30 seconds. The battle evolved into a deadly dance, Maya's squadron constantly shifting leadership and patterns, never settling into anything the collective could predict. Meanwhile, the conventional Alliance fleet struggled, their more rigid tactics proving increasingly vulnerable. "Commander Chen," Velox's voice came through the comm. "The main fleet is sustaining heavy losses. Can your methods be adapted for larger vessels?" "Not easily," Maya replied, executing a spinning maneuver that took her between 2 collective destroyers. "But I have an idea. Have your capital ships form a spherical defense around Vega Prime. Don't move. Just rotate in place to distribute shield coverage. Remain stationary. That's suicide. Trust me, Commander. Let us be your mobility." After a moment's hesitation, Velox gave the order. The Alliance battleships and cruisers formed a globe around the planet, their massive forms spinning slowly but otherwise stationary. "All quantum groups," Maya called. "Sunflower formation around the fleet. We'll draw their fire and create targeting confusion." Her pilots responded instantly, their smaller ships darting in complex patterns around the larger vessels. They didn't try to attack the collective ships directly. Instead, they disrupted the quantum probability fields, creating zones of unpredictability that confused the enemy's targeting systems. "It's working," Felix admitted, his voice carrying a hint of wonder. "The collective's hit rate has dropped by 60%. Maya pushed her ship into an impossible spiral between enemy vessels, drawing their fire while creating an opening for conventional Alliance weapons to target a collective command ship. Through her enhanced perception, she could see the probability clouds shifting, the enemy attempting to adapt to their constantly changing tactics. "They're trying to establish a meta-pattern," she realized. "They're looking for the pattern in how we change patterns." She opened a channel to all her pilots. "Everyone, free improvisation. No structures, no patterns. Pure quantum jazz." The result was chaos. Beautiful, deadly chaos. Each pilot followed their instincts, moving in ways that made sense only to them in that moment. The neural augmentation allowed them to perceive each other's intentions just enough to avoid collisions while maintaining complete tactical unpredictability. The collective's perfect coordination faltered. For the first time, their ships began to show signs of confusion. Some moving erratically, others hesitating before firing. "We've disrupted their quantum consensus," Dr. Land's excited voice came through Maya's private channel. "Their ships operate on entangled decision matrices. They literally cannot act without predictive certainty." Maya seized the opportunity. "All Alliance vessels, target the collective flagship. Maximum firepower." The combined weapons of the Alliance fleet converged on the massive collective vessel at the center of their formation. Its advanced shields, designed to counter predictable attack patterns, fluctuated wildly under the quantum chaotic assault. For a moment that stretched into eternity, nothing happened. Then, a cascade of energy erupted from the flagship, spreading to the surrounding collective vessels through what appeared to be quantum entanglement links. One by one, the enemy ships went dark, their propulsion and weapons systems failing. "What's happening?" Velox demanded. "System-wide quantum decoherence," Dr. Lan explained, his voice trembling with excitement. Their entangled systems have collapsed into a single state, an inactive one. The battle ended not with a decisive explosion, but with the silent drifting of powerless collective vessels. Alliance ships moved in cautiously, establishing containment fields around the disabled enemy. In the aftermath, as rescue operations and damage assessment proceeded, Maya found herself summoned to the Alliance flagship for an emergency council meeting. This time, she wasn't kept waiting outside. Commander Chen, High Counselor Miras began, his tentacles arranged in a formal pattern of respect. It appears we owe you and your pilots a debt of gratitude. Maya inclined her head slightly. My team performed admirably, Counselor, but this was a joint victory, conventional forces and quantum tactics working in concert. Indeed, Admiral Felix said, surprising her with his tone of genuine respect. Your intuitive approach has proven its worth beyond question. The question now, Velox added, is how we proceed. The collective fleet is neutralized for the moment, but they will return, likely with countermeasures against your tactics. Then we'll need to evolve further, Maya said simply. The advantage of quantum intuitive tactics is that they're not static. They grow, adapt, transform, just like humans have always done. The council debated long into the night, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Alliance would formally establish a quantum tactical division, with Maya as its commander. Resources would be allocated to train more human pilots and research ways to incorporate their unique cognitive abilities into Alliance strategy. 3 months later, Maya stood in the newly constructed Quantum Academy orbiting Earth. Before her were 500 pilots from across human space, each selected for their potential to perceive and navigate quantum probability states. You're not here to learn rigid tactics or follow orders without question, she told them. You're here to unlearn what you think you know about space combat. To trust your human intuition, the one thing our enemies cannot predict or replicate. She activated the holographic display, showing the latest intelligence on collective movements at the edge of Alliance space. Their enemy had withdrawn but was regrouping, adapting. The rules of engagement have changed, Maya continued. For millennia, space combat was about technology, about calculation, about perfect execution of established doctrine. The collective mastered that game better than we ever could. She smiled, looking out at the future of Alliance defense. So we're not playing that game anymore. We're playing ours, human, imperfect, intuitive, and gloriously unpredictable. And that is how we will win. As the new cadets dispersed to their first training sessions, Dr. Lan approached Maya with the latest neural scans. We've identified the specific brain structures that enable quantum perception, the scientist reported. With the right training, nearly 30% of humans can develop this ability to some degree. And the aliens? Maya asked. Some species show potential, particularly those with nonlinear neural structures. The Havelians are especially promising. Maya nodded, pleased. While humanity had found its unique contribution to the Alliance, this wasn't about human superiority. It was about diversity of thought, of perception, of being. That evening, she returned to her quarters and stood at the viewport, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The neural augmentation device sat on her desk, but she didn't need it anymore. Her natural abilities had strengthened with use and training. She could see the quantum probabilities flowing around the planet, around the ships in orbit, around herself, infinite possibilities condensing into reality moment by moment. It was beautiful and terrifying and wonderful. The Void Collective would return, and the dance would begin again. But now, humanity had found its rhythm in the cosmos, not through technological superiority or overwhelming force, but through the uniquely human gift of chaotic, beautiful, unpredictable intuition. The rules of space combat had changed forever, and humanity had changed them.